And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to MassCann's 12th in its series of virtual education village panels. My name is Grant Smith-Ellis, and it's an honor for me to be here hosting the 12th panel, as I just mentioned. Today's panel is actually a patient panel featuring a variety of voices from different medical cannabis patients. And before we get into those introductions, I want to take 1 minute to say thank you to MassCann NORML, which is the Massachusetts affiliate of NORML. And that is the organization, the 501c4 nonprofit, that is helping to facilitate the platform for us today. So for folks who are interested, you can find out more information about MassCann by visiting https://masscann.org, and there you'll be able to not only see a compendium of all of the previous Education Village panels, but you'll also be able to find out more information about how to become a member of MassCann by visiting the homepage. Memberships are available for $30 per year. They help out with a great cause in terms of on-the-ground cannabis activism in the Commonwealth, and you also get a wonderful free MassCann t-shirt when you become a member. So thank you to MassCann again and the Education Village for putting on this panel. And I want to give a warm welcome to our three panelists, Jana Martin, Saxon Hill, and our good friend Max. And I'd actually like to give them all a chance to introduce themselves, their history with cannabis activism, and any other introductory remarks they might want to make. So for that, let's start with Jana. Welcome, Jana.
Hello, thank you. How is everyone today?
Good.
Well,
Thanks for hosting. Thank you, Grant, for hosting and having us. My name is Jana Martin, if everyone knows. I'm a patient. I'm an advocate. I've been a member of MassCann probably for a little over a year now, but friends with everyone. It's kind of how I got involved. Cannabis has been a part of my life for quite some time, but most recently in the last couple of years becoming a medical patient. Meeting new people, going to the State House, speaking for my rights, dealing with doctors, nurses, medical staff alike. It's been a great experience.
Wonderful. Let's go to Saxon next. Saxon, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? I know that you're one of the people on the panel, actually the only one, not from Massachusetts. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into cannabis activism, and anything else you'd like to say? Saxon?
Good afternoon. Thank you for hosting.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Saxon. I recently moved to Arizona from Iowa, where most of my activism took place. I have always consumed cannabis in my adult life. When I was 22, I found out I had chronic brain cancer and a brain tumor larger than a soda can, and I had brain surgery, and was fortunate to have a successful brain surgery and retain function mostly of my entire body, and have had profound struggles with my physical health since then, and have developed new brain tumors in the time being, and have advocated for cannabis at the Iowa Capitol consistently, and pushed, and they finally gave us what they call a medical cannabis program. It's CBD only. There are 3 places last I knew in the state where you could legally acquire this medicine. 6 doctors in the state that they had licensed to provide this license, and had no interest in expanding it or hearing any further arguments about the fact that you can't isolate more than 100 cannabinoids into one and say, this is the miracle of it all. This is all you should have access to, and this is what's going to work for everyone. Because that's simply not the case. As I mentioned, everyone on our panel, and you, Grant, would also agree that CBD can't act for everything a medical cannabis patient will need. And now I'm in Arizona, in a place where there is medical cannabis and you can actually access THC-based medicine with limitations of being 2.5 ounces a week or 2.5 ounces a week, depending on how they measure it. If you buy edibles, they measure it based on the material that was put in. So if you buy edibles that were made with flowers or hash, you're going to get very few edibles in that time frame. And that's something I would like to begin working on. Advocating for is changing that and making it so it's accessible to income limited patients, because medicine is profoundly expensive and difficult to access if you're income limited and on disability here.
I think that's a struggle that a lot of folks listening will certainly have gone through, and hopefully we'll be able to dive a little bit more into hardships and product accessibility a little bit later on. For now, Max, would you like to give us an intro about yourself and your activism work, if you wouldn't mind?
I'm a relative newcomer to the cannabis world. I didn't find cannabis until I'd spent more than 20 years listening to my doctor on ever-increasing dosages of opiates. I found cannabis at 43 when fentanyl was making the news every night. And I realized how deadly the patch I was putting on myself every day was, and went looking for an alternative. I spent 20 years on prescription opiates. I was a legal addict, and I'm now coming up on 2 years clean after more than 20 years on.
Yay.
Amazing.
Very powerful. And I will quickly say, although I'm hosting, for those who don't know, my name is Grant Smith-Ellis. I am also a disabled medical cannabis patient, and much like Max, my doctor also put me on a dose of pain medication that I did not realize the side effects of, and it was actually with cannabis that I was able to lower that dose. I have trigeminal neuralgia, and I've managed to reduce my pharmanarcotic dosage myself by 30% over the past 2 years, so without question.
I
didn't add that in there, but since you mentioned that, mine wasn't the painkillers, mine was the benzos. I had legal benzos written by my doctor. And I think my favorite story once was I was having a really bad issue in my family at the time. And I had actually called my doctor, like, in an emergency over the phone. And I just said, I'm having a panic attack. What do I do? And he said, well, since I can't get you any more of those, I'm going to write you a different prescription for these. That way your insurance company will cover it and you'll be fine. And in one sense, I'm thinking, thank God. But then, obviously after the fact, I thought about it. I'm thinking, this is just so sad. The doctors even know how to play the game of, well, we'll just give you this and then we'll give you that. And then we'll give you some of this and then we'll give you some of that. It's like
my experience with painkillers was going into brain surgery and having, 76 stitches from temple to temple and 4.5 inches of swelling out from my forehead and a 1/4-inch drainage tube in my skull. And then having fentanyl in one arm and morphine in the other arm. And 30 hours after surgery, me looking at them and telling them, get this synthesized heroin out of me. I can't handle this anymore. I'm done. And Benadryl became my painkiller with all of my setup.
Well, that actually leads right, thank you both, because it leads right into what I was going to ask to all panelists, and maybe we can go in reverse order this time, so we can start with Max. When did you first find that cannabis was able to have a positive impact on your day-to-day quality of life, and how did you integrate that into your treatment regimen?
So it was about 5 years ago. I was looking for an alternative to the opiates. My research always came back to cannabis, and I literally found someone on Craigslist and gave it a try. I woke up 10 hours later for the first time in 20 years, and I woke up rested, and it got my attention. For my pain, I use Fico. It completely replaced the opiates with nearly zero side effects. I think back, and we had done the amount of extra that I slept over that 20 years. And in that 20 years, compared to the normal person, I slept another 2.7 years in 20. And now I get up in the morning and my feet hit the floor and I'm rested, and the pain is controlled better, and I'm literally getting my life back after 20 years of sitting in a closet.
So happy for you.
It's very inspiring. Thank you for sharing. Saxon, would you like to share how you first found cannabis and integrated it into your treatment regimen?
So I'll be honest, a lot of young people, I enjoyed just smoking and hanging out with my friends. That's what I enjoyed when I was 18 to 20. And didn't do all my college work that I should have, but I had a whole bunch of PTSD from growing up in a profoundly abusive home. And I realized that cannabis was helping. It was helping me sleep, and it was helping me process things, and it was helping me to be able to be in a mental place where I could begin to unpack things that if I was completely and totally unmedicated, I couldn't begin to unpack at all. And then I found out at 22 I had brain cancer, and I'd always known that cannabis and cancer had a strong relationship. And I believe personally that cannabis as a plant evolved next to human beings as a being, and our immune system is adapted to using this plant. We have an endocannabinoid system, which the FDA refuses to teach about. And I realized that my greatest chance of beating this cancer, because I was told after my brain surgery, when they came in 7 days after surgery before I left the hospital, they said to me, we've got the biopsy back. And this was as close to becoming the most penultimate form of brain cancer you can find. And we expect within 12 months, it will be the same size or larger, and this time have achieved that goal. So this is what we're going to do in radiation and chemotherapy, but this is what we expect regardless. And I was committed with every bit of my being that cannabis could help me live. And I got 7 years out without any signs of regrowth. But now we are in the position where they said I would likely be. And that's really challenging, but it also gives me huge amounts of inspiration that cannabis helped me fight for so long and in such a powerful way. And it's kept me off of opiates.
Both very powerful stories. Both so much of a microcosm of what it is to be a cannabis patient. Jana, did you have anything on that front you wanted to share as well?
My story isn't nearly as good as theirs, but as we all age, our bodies change. And over time, I myself, as with everyone else, noticed I was in need of some medication. And I had, been back and forth between doctors and medications, and taking something and not taking something. And, who doesn't like who hates putting, pills in their mouth or, chemicals in their body. And it's just, it's hard when you find that, your body isn't balanced. You need something, and then something turns out to be a pill. So for me, my big moment was, I had been on some medication at the time, and the medical program had just been passed in Mass, and I went and I had my appointment. I was so nervous, and I went, called all my doctors, and I had my files this thick with all the medications I'd been on, and I was all set to convince them I was, really in need of this medical card. And, I walk in the office and I had my visit, and, she listened to everything and said, we need to get you on this program. And no sooner do I, get on the program and go home, and I go out and get my medical card, and I start, consuming my cannabis. And my big aha moment was about 3.5 weeks in. I remember I was having a bad moment, and I went over to take up, open up my bottle of pills. I couldn't take some. It was a benzo. And I opened up the bottle that should have been empty because it had been a month, and it was, towards the end of the month, and it was ready for refill time. And I had just gotten the message from the pharmacy and time to refill. And I opened up the bottle and it was still full. And I stopped and I just dropped it on the ground and the pills went everywhere. I started crying, and it was this moment for me because I had realized that since I had gotten my medical card and I had been consuming my cannabis, that I stopped taking the pills, not even trying, not even on purpose, like by accident. And to me, it was just this big moment of, why am I taking all these pills that can kill you when I have this plant right here? That's this beautiful, loving little girl. Well, we need, you know what I'm saying, that produces these beautiful flowers and gives us this medication. So that was my moment. It wasn't quite, as powerful as Gentleman. But yeah, it was just, it literally was like, wow, I don't need these. And, it was kind of like, I felt like in a way I had saved my own life.
But when we talk about medical cannabis, I think quite often things like what myself and the other panel member are experiencing get all of the primary focus, where mental health gets left completely on the back burner. My spouse has profound mental health challenges, and cannabis is probably the only reason that she's able to be alive today.
Especially now with, what's going on in today's times. There's a lot of people facing, mental distress.
She's agoraphobic, so she's not too worried about the stay-at-home orders.
Let me ask. Sorry. Go ahead, Saxon.
But again, though, that's something I think that as activists, we need to take upon ourselves to be bringing to the forefront, is the fact that mental health is so profoundly affected by cannabis in a positive way.
Right.
And those patients deserve to have the same volume for their voice as those of us with physical and very, very scannable, invisible ailments when a doctor starts looking at us.
Right. So that leads us into, how do we move forward in the industry dealing with cannabis and our rights to have it as medical patients, and the doctors just not doing their job, not treating it like medication, not treating it like any other medication. As you guys don't know, part of my story is why I'm here is I was scheduled to have surgery a year ago on my knee, and I got kicked off the operating table because I told the doctor I had consumed my cannabis that day. And, they had questioned me on the phone prior to that, letting me know what I could take and what I couldn't take. And they told me I could take my medication. I told them I was a cannabis user. They said, okay, over the phone. I get up that morning, I took my cannabis like every other medication, that I had needed to consume. I got to the hospital and the doctor decided that they didn't know enough about it, that they were too nervous. They didn't know what it was going to do under anesthesia, and they booted me. And it behooves me that these doctors and nurses and medical staff are still not educated and still not mandated to be educated.
That's something that I think that we have to focus on as patients, is forcing our doctors to listen and pushing the knowledge of an endocannabinoid system forward.
Oh, yeah. With my doctor, anything that I was bringing as my research was the first research that he'd had.
Wow.
So I was his first go through of pain here, opiates, pain here, cannabis. I was told that there was no way that I could come off of the opiates that I was on. I was on a lifetime dose.
Question for you, Max.
It's.
Was he
I
open
tell
to the
people that
knowledge?
cannabis isn't the panacea. It doesn't help everyone. It doesn't solve every problem. But God, as something that we can try first, that's the least invasive. Yeah, we need to get there.
Question for you.
Saxon, did you have a question for Max?
Yeah. So was your doctor receptive to you bringing that to him?
Yes, surprisingly.
Out the gate?
By the time, he told me I could never come off, that I was on too much, it would most likely kill me. And I heard words that really made a difference this past August. And he just looked at me and he said, look, I've been your doctor since you were 16. You haven't looked this good in decades. And I was wrong. And, I mean, you talk about I've come out the other side. My family's been the same way. At first it was, look what he's doing. And, it's nice to see family members who are going, wait a minute, this guy's a different person than he was 5 years ago on the opiates. And I've got military relatives, and that say, I can't look at what you've done and not say it's medicine. It's there.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I ask about your doctor because I've never once had a doctor who has been supportive in any way, shape, or form. I now have a neurosurgeon.
She's a PA. The one that I'm seeing right now, my orthopedist that I'm seeing, she's a PA, but she wouldn't be the one that would be operating on me. I'm going to have to go in soon myself and have another surgery in the next maybe 6 months to a year. And I'm telling you right now, there's no way I'm keeping this from the next doctor. It's going to be up front. And, this is what I do and this is what I need. And,
Within the next 6 months for me, I know I'm having brain surgery.
Aww.
And this time it's going to be conscious.
Oh my Lord. I had eye surgery once. Actually, I lied 4 times, and they do it when you're conscious, when you're awake. It's kind of weird.
They're going to be asking me to do things while they're operating.
Yeah.
So they know that they're not cutting a function.
Make sure all your loads are functioning.
Well, my tumor, the first time I had my brain tumor, it lies right across your left side function.
Wow.
And also breached the emotional spectrum and tone control and other social functions.
Wow.
So all of my emotional spectrum and tone control is active control.
Wow.
Good luck
And without
with that.
cannabis, I couldn't do it.
We're praying for you.
Yes. It actually brings up a question I was going to ask to you, Saxon, although this is to Jana and Max as well, which is obviously something that enables you all to benefit from your medical cannabis is affordability and accessibility of medical cannabis. So in your respective states, Max and Jana in Massachusetts, Saxon in Arizona, what can your regulators, your lawmakers, the public do to help you get more affordable and accessible pathways to get your cannabis medication? Saxon, go ahead.
In Arizona, it's $250 to get your medical card. And that's really challenging when you live on $879 a month. And you can't grow your own medicine unless you live more than 50 miles from a dispensary. And in a place like Arizona, that's Death Valley. You can't inhabit a place where that law will apply to you. So making it so I could grow my own medicine or access someone who would grow medicine for me under a structure like EBT is, where it's, if you make this income, you qualify. And if you make above this income, you do not qualify to be in this program. And making it so I could qualify to access a grower who would grow me medicine at a discounted rate, that they were, a 401c3 to do so, would be hugely beneficial to me and anyone in my position. But as I've seen since I've been here, all of the dispensaries are technically nonprofits, but they find a way to make themselves money.
Yes, and I was actually going to drop in there as a reference to you, and perhaps I'll send this to you after the panel. Massachusetts is in the process of developing a caregiver program that is exactly what you're talking about, and in fact does not even require them to be incorporated. A caregiver can simply grow basically pro bono for a specific patient if that patient has a financial or medical hardship. So I will hopefully be able to get some information about that to you, Saxon, because I would love to see that kind of program rolled out for you in Arizona as well.
Start handing that legislation to these guys out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, my other love other than MassCann is I'm part of a Patriots Helping Vets. We're working on our nonprofit. We play middleman to guys. You've got guys in the VA that are just, they're on such a regimented, minuscule amount of income. And, we would love to see a system like that go into effect where those of us who are able, like myself, I couldn't afford the cannabis in a dispensary. Now, without the home grow for Massachusetts, I'm not here today. It's the dispensary to me is too expensive. If I didn't live, in a private spot where I can grow and not have to worry, I couldn't even afford what Massachusetts charges.
Wow.
I can't afford what Arizona charges. There's honestly every month at least a week and a half, 2 weeks that I'm without medicine collectively. And I have a gigantic brain tumor right now, which causes me to have, it's really hard to describe brain pain, but I get these horrible zaps of pain in random parts of my body that are like on a 1 to 10 pain scale, like a 20. And I have no idea where it's going to hit or when or for how long.
And the restrictions on your access are right now depriving you of your medicine for up to 2 weeks per month, every month?
Basically, yeah, financially, like my wife and I, we have $225 a month that we can put into medicine. And that's an ounce, essentially, of flowers. And it's just, people look at you and say, oh, you're on disability and you sit at home and smoke all day. No, that's not what I do. I'm sitting at home trying to, cope with what I'm dealing with in general. And then being told by my insurance, we'll pay for this, procedure you need, but then Mayo Clinic saying we won't do it. And then other hospitals saying we won't do it. The funding is there, but we won't do it. So it's just, not to bemoan that, but between cannabis and everything else, people aren't looking at patients and asking, how can we help you?
Well,
they're asking, how can you help me?
Right. And it's actually, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Saxon.
It's tired. And it's tired that patients are continually being manipulated and drawn from and treated like a source of life for a bunch of vampire corporations at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually really glad in that context that I was actually able to ask you two and now Jana directly what it is as patients you'd like to see in terms of changes to make things more affordable and accessible, because you're absolutely right. It's the patient perspective that has to drive these changes. So Jana, do you have any accessibility or affordability changes that could be made here in Mass?
I mean, if it was cheaper, I wouldn't be growing at home. I'd just be going to the dispensary like everyone else. But, I think overall, to be honest, Grant, and Max and Saxon is what scares me right now is, from my understanding, is the CCC is actually trying to change all of the laws and regulations on home grow in Massachusetts, and that I'm not okay with. What we can do right now at home as medical patients, home grow right now currently works for me. But what they're trying to do to the program and the way they're trying to cap it and limit it and redo the whole thing is that is insane. Having our grows inspected, needing a footprint. I mean, I'm hearing all kinds of things. If we make any changes to our grow, we're going to have to run it by the state first.
Are you a contractor?
Everything. I mean, everything. It's supposed to be like they're supposed to come and look. The state is supposed to come and look at your house and look at your room and make sure it's up to code before you start. I mean, I'm telling you, it's insane the things that I'm hearing. They're trying to. So, what I would like to see in the program is none of that.
Yeah.
I would like to see them just leave the program alone and let us continue doing things the way we're doing things. Regulations, yes, but those kind of regulations are just, I don't know, insane.
And I think, just to give some context for the listeners, what Jana's talking about is that, so it's actually very interesting. Right now in the state of Massachusetts, if you're doing an adult use grow, so a non-medical grow, and you have 2 adults in the house, you can have up to 12 plants. But for medical grows, the rules and regulations, when they were originally promulgated back to 2012, actually required all medical patients to get a hardship license to grow their medicine, even a plant. But those hardship licenses were never issued. So what Jan is talking about is that basically every patient right now can do a hardship grow. And the Cannabis Control Commission is thinking about how to structure that program so that it isn't just, if you're a medical patient, you can do a hardship grow. And that's actually, it brings up a very good point, because I'm wondering, as patients, how do you think the Cannabis Control Commission should approach patient grows in the context of what Jan is talking about? Do you think it's reasonable for them to do an election?
It's quite extreme right now, Grant, because if you're not familiar, I don't have it written down in front of me, which chapter, which section. It's like 9403 something, section 7 of just something crazy on the mass.gov website. But right now, currently, there is no plant count in the state of Massachusetts for medical patients by law. The only thing that it says in writing is you are entitled to grow enough to cover your 60-day supply.
Yep.
Is what's written. It does not specify plant count. So to go from technically you can grow as much as you need to you can grow 6 plants is insane. And I actually told them, I don't know if Max, if we were at one of the CC meetings, and I sat down at the table and I gave my my testimony in front of the CC, and I looked at them and I said, you guys are insane. And I used the word insane about 4 times.
The other thing that they don't have regulated is what's a plant. Is it cutting a plant? Is a 6-inch seedling a plant? Or is it an 8 to 10 to 12-inch clone?
Right.
Or is it only a plant that's bloomed?
Yeah.
Right. Mature versus immature.
Right. So if they're going to start specifying a 6 plant count, what is considered? You're going to tell me that a clone is considered a plant too? Well, then Jesus Christ, I might as well not even grow at all.
Like in my opinion, if possible, just give people medical growing access at home and just leave them the hell alone.
Yeah. Another thing is that in Massachusetts, if you do a medical grow, you're technically banned from visiting medical dispensaries, which I think just has to go as well.
Right now you're not, but that's what they're proposing.
Yeah. So
that's
right
crazy.
Now, because I take it back. You might be right. I'm not registered, but I do grow at home, but I also shop at dispensary.
Yeah, so I'm a
but I know
patient.
that they are proposing that.
No, I'm a medical patient, and if you go to a dispensary right now, when you sign the patient contract, it says, I understand that I cannot do a medical grow for any reason. You actually have to sign a piece of paper saying that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but I what I will tell folks, because I have some more questions, is that all of this stuff is actually about to be discussed, and the Cannabis Control Commission is about to go through, like Jana was talking about, what's called a regulatory revision. Now, this means that we don't know what's going to be in their proposal yet because it has not been put forth, but in the next few weeks, the Cannabis Control Commission is going to put out all these new rules about what is a plant, what is a clone, is there going to be a plant limit? And if you are interested in this as a listener, as an activist, as a business owner, please pay attention, inform yourself, like Jana was saying. Don't be afraid to reach out to the Cannabis Control Commission and let them know how you feel, because if you don't, someone else might, and the rules may end up not quite the way that you would want.
And you pay for them to sit in those chairs.
Yes.
You know,
And
Grant, you brought up
pay
something
for them to be
interesting.
there.
Grant, you brought up something interesting a second ago about the whole home grow, and you just have my brain ticking. That was also one of the things in the meeting that came up in conversation was, you know, if you register to home grow, which I would because I'm a home grow, then you're right. It is in writing that I lose my right to. And I looked at them and I said, so what happens, you know, if something happens to my grow, God forbid, I lose my crop over, you know, if there was bugs or there was mold, I lose my crop. Now you're going to tell me that I'm a medical patient who has cancer, God forbid, Saxon. I'm trying to grow my own medicine. I have a mishap in the garden, and now I can't even, you're not going to let me go by the dispensary? Or like, how fair? Like, that's just so wrong. It's just so wrong. Everything they're doing about, you know, yeah.
Now, I will make one point here just to weigh in. The reason they did this, Jana, is that although you're absolutely right that state law doesn't define it, some people, some patients, were getting arrested by the feds with as low as 56 plants. And so what the commission did when they saw these arrests started to happen was they said, I bet if we put a number, it'll make it less likely that the feds will arrest patients.
I'll back it up.
So I think it's a little bit of a balance, but it's absolutely a discussion that has to happen in public to make sure that everyone gets to weigh in. Let me ask you all a different question. That was actually a really great discussion, so thank you all for indulging on the home grow discussion there. Maybe I can narrow down here, because we talked a little bit about barriers to accessing your medicine. We talked about how to get rid of those barriers to accessing your medicine in targeted ways. We talked a little bit about hardship programs. But one thing that they're considering in Massachusetts is actually a hardship program for medical patients that would tie your discount to your income. Now, I know, Saxon, you talked a little bit about this earlier, but maybe a question to all of you is, what do you think about those kind of sliding scale discounts, and is it something that you think would help in your lives? We can start with Saxon, as he brought it up before.
I think something like that brings compassionate care to the forefront and demands that these growers aren't just here to make as much money as they possibly can off of sick people. And I guess for me, what I see in the medical cannabis industry, whether it be Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, anywhere I've been, it's profit over people across the board. And I think if we put sliding scale mechanisms in place like that, it puts people over profits without question, and it makes it clear that you matter more than that dispensary being able to give, you know, that grower a huge bonus at the end of the year, and you actually got medicine for the month instead of being miserable nonstop.
Jana or Max?
You know, a sliding scale would be great. You know, that would open up things that I can't produce. You know, I can grow my flower and I can make my FICO, but you know, what the dispensaries have goes a heck of a lot further than that. So yeah, a sliding scale would be amazing.
Any thoughts on that, Jana?
I agree. I mean, it would be nice if more things in life were based on income, I guess. But, you know, at the end of the day, you're dealing with medical patients that are, you know, very, very limited income in this medicine. It's, you know, it's medication. It's, you know, that would be nice if we didn't have to pay for it all. But that's a whole other topic of conversation. If insurance companies would just cover it, that would be great. But they don't. Absolutely. We're medical patients. Maybe, you know, sliding scale. Absolutely. 100%.
And just to give you all an update, there is a case in Massachusetts right now where a man is suing his insurance company and requesting the court order that the company reimburse him for the cost of his medical marijuana.
I think we spoke about that before.
Yes, and there is a chance that the Massachusetts court may rule that Mass Health needs to reimburse medical patients for the out-of-pocket cost. Now, it hasn't happened yet, But it's something that I think all patients in the state are going to be watching very closely as the ruling comes down in the next few months.
That creates a national conversation if that goes in our favor.
There was actually a ruling already in New Jersey that state insurance can cover out-of-pocket cannabis costs. So to let you all know, this could well be a situation where in a year or two, all of your out-of-pocket costs, if you're on Mass Health or a similar insurance, are covered when you purchase your cannabis.
That's huge.
So I have a question for you guys. Is Mass Health your guys' like Medicaid, like your state insurance?
Correct.
Then? Okay.
Yep.
Because here it's access.
Uh-huh. Yep. I think it's different, obviously, in each state, but it's the state-level Medicaid program, and it's a great place to start because it will allow the insurance companies who work with Mass Health to develop a model for working within medical marijuana companies. Because right now, I'm sure you all know that when insurance companies work with pharmacies, there's all these complex special relationships and billing codes and, bulk discounts. That doesn't exist yet for medical marijuana and insurance companies. Someone's got to build that.
Let's help them build it.
Yep. So let me ask you, we actually somehow, I didn't even realize we've been going for this long, but we're actually at one of the last questions I wanted to ask you all. And it's actually not as much of a policy question. You can tell I'm a bit of a policy lover. This is actually about the products you consume. So when you guys are consuming your cannabis formulations, what do you find the most helpful and why? And we can start with Jana.
When I'm consuming my cannabis products, what do I consume and what do I find the most helpful? Okay. When I consume my cannabis products, I consume my products. I grow my own. And I also, I press my own, so I make my own rosin. Why do I consume it? I consume it because it's mine. I know what's in it. I grow organically. It's more affordable that way. As far as why do I press it? I started pressing rosin probably about a year ago. I just like the smoke better. It's a cleaner smoke for me. Just a cleaner smoke. What was the other question? And then I guess my method of consumption would be probably dabbing it. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell, and I love it. I have fun. It's fun. The whole process is nice. It's a long process between growing it and pressing it and all that stuff, but it's worth it in the end.
Yep.
Just knowing that it's mine.
Before I jump on, Jana, let me ask you, for folks who might just be learning about cannabis, can you tell us a little bit about what it means to press flower into rosin?
So the way I did it is I bought a mini press machine online. I don't want to drop any names, but it's just one of the more well-known companies. And basically what you do is you turn it on and it's got it looks like a t-shirt press or a hat press, and it's got two metal plates on it. And it's tiny. They're like 2-inch by 2-inch metal plates. One on the top, one on the bottom. You turn it on, and after it heats up, you take all your cannabis and you get like a little rosin bag that's like this big. It's a mesh bag, and you just shove your weed inside. And then, you squish it all down, and you take some parchment paper. So you take your like little bag of weed and you put it inside parchment paper, put it together, and then you put the whole thing inside the press machine. When you press it down, the heat pushes the oil out of the cannabis onto and sticks to the paper. And then I take the paper and you put it like in the fridge or the freezer and let it kind of cool and stick up and
So
you're basically smoking just the oil off the plant and not any of the plant matter. So it's nice. Well, I shouldn't say not any, but microscopic.
So this would be a solventless concentrate.
Yes. Gee, good thing you mentioned that. I forgot to mention that. Yes. So the reason why I like it, number one, is for me, I'm being independent. Wasn't relying on anybody to help me out or do it for me. Number two, it was very easy because it was just, like I said, like a squish. Number three, like you said, it's solventless. So for me, part of the reason why I smoke it is because I grow organically and it's solventless. In my opinion, it's got to be one of the healthier things to smoke because there's no solvent, there's no constant, there's nothing. I'm not running it through any chemical, any butane, any, you know, iso, anything. It's not going through anything. It's literally just squished out oil.
Wonderful. So that was quite a comprehensive and thorough answer. I don't mean to make you follow that, Max, but what method of consumption do you prefer and why?
So I was introduced to FICO right at the start. I make hard candy and I microdose over the day. And you know, I would say I probably consume 80% that way. And other than that, I'm still a flower guy.
I know some of us on the panel will know, but for those who might be watching that might not know a lot about cannabis formulations, FICO is full extract cannabis oil. Can you tell us a little bit about what FICO is and why patients find it so helpful?
You're getting the whole plant, and you're not burning any of it up. You know, depending on the process, you know, some, again, we're back into solvents, but you know, I'm able to grind up my flour. You add grain alcohol to it, let it sit, and then you distill all of the alcohol back out. And when you do, you get left with this black tarry substance, and the process takes all of the beneficial parts of the plant and basically breaks the bond with the plant material. And it's highly concentrated. So, but this is the stuff that people using in large doses are doing it for cancers and showing amazing results when the world is right.
Well, that is a timely transition because I was going to actually ask Saxon what preparations he finds helpful and how that has played into his treatment. I know you mentioned a little earlier, Saxon, you had a period of time where your tumor went into a stage where it was not growing while you were using cannabis. Can you tell us a little bit more about what products you use and how you found they're helpful?
So at the time when I had surgery, I lived in Iowa. And for those listening who don't know, Iowa is one of the most aggressive states in the country towards cannabis. Depending on the circumstances and how the officer feels, you can get a felony for an eighth. Quite easily. It just all depends on how the officer wants to proceed with things. So I was consuming whatever I could get a hold of in Iowa. So I wasn't able to get enough medicine to make FICO like Max was just talking about. So I just smoked flowers, and then later concentrates started becoming more prevalent. And it's usually shatter that I can get a hold of, which is not solventless as the other panelists were talking about. Would I prefer to be able to consume rosin? Yes, but it's expensive and you need a lot of flowers to be able to produce it, and a home grow would be conducive to being able to make that for myself. I'm currently pursuing FICO for exactly what the other panelists just mentioned, for cancer treatment in higher doses. And it's challenging to get a hold of and very expensive. The cheapest I found it at a dispensary in Arizona has been $55 a gram before tax.
God.
And it's just, you know, I need, if I'm going to start using that for cancer treatment, I need at least 1 gram a day.
Jesus.
So, yeah.
Well, if anyone is listening and you're in Arizona and you have compassionate access to FICO, please, whether it's myself or Saxon, do not hesitate to reach out. Compassionate access to medical cannabis is the foundation of good cannabis activism, and folks like Saxon deserve
honestly
that.
Desperate.
Okay.
To be entirely honest, I'm at a point where I'm desperate.
Well, you heard it from Saxon here, folks. He's putting himself out to say that if you are in Arizona and you are involved with the compassionate use of medical cannabis there, please do not hesitate to make contact if you can help a cancer patient. I know that I will be forever in your debt, and I'm sure Saxon will as well. I hate to transition away from that because every single part of every single one of your stories was so powerful today. I know that I was engaged and pretty much gripped. I did not even realize we had been going for almost an hour when I looked down. So I can always tell that it's been an amazing panel when it just flies by. So I want to take a second to say my name is Grant Smith-Ellis. I'm here with MassCann's 12th Virtual Education Village panel. This panel today has been obviously a first-person perspective from medical cannabis patients in Arizona and in Massachusetts about what it's like to be a medical cannabis patient, how that medical cannabis has helped to change lives, and how barriers to access to that medical cannabis cause real pain to people who are suffering from serious medical conditions. So to those of you who have listened today, thank you. To MassCann for hosting the panel, thank you. You all can find out more information about MassCann at masscann.org, where you can become a member for $30 a year. You'll also receive a nice t-shirt and help to support the work of a wonderful 501c4 educational nonprofit. Now, before I do my final intro, I want to turn it over to the panelists one more time for their final remarks, and I think we'll start with Jana.
My goodness, final remarks. Let's see. Geez, cannabis has done so much for me. The only thing that I really have to say is follow your heart, help out, be honest to yourself, be honest with your doctors. It's a power plant. Don't ever forget it.
Wonderful. Max?
You know, I tell people my story. I tell them that cannabis should be an option. I don't claim it to be the solver of all problems. Access needs to be easier and cheaper, and it needs to be considered before some of the currently common used pain medicines, just based on side effects alone.
Well said. Saxon?
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Massachusetts Cannabis and Normal for hosting this, and Grant, thank you for hosting. And I also think that, you know, we need to look at cannabis as a very, very serious conversation, that if we push this on a national scale, we can change the epidemic sweeping our country of opiate abuse. We can absolutely change the face of something destroying communities all over this country and destroying families every day by giving people access to a plant. It's not hard. All it is compassion and logic. Stop poisoning people and let us have access to real medicine. And that's why we fight. And that's what we all fight for. And I just also ask that, you know, none of us give up on fighting. None of us let a legislator make us think to ourselves it's over or we're done being heard. We're always going to have this opportunity to be heard if we keep speaking. If we give up and just sit down, you'll never be heard and we'll never change a thing.
Well, thank you all for that touching hour-long discussion and for your touching closing words. I think that the authenticity that comes through in your stories makes the cannabis community a very special place. And if there's one reason why I have hope for the future of grassroots cannabis activism, it's folks like yourself who are in it for the right reasons, and folks like yourself who truly care not just about profits or whatever it may be, but access to medicine for the people who are the most vulnerable in our society. So it's been very inspiring to be here with you all today. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to be here with us for MassCann's 12th Education Village panel. To all those who have watched, thank you so much. Please feel free to check out the other Education Village panels on the MassCann website. And please keep an eye on the MassCann Facebook going forward, as we have some more excellent panels with veterans, patients, activists, advocates, and more coming up very soon. So again, have a great afternoon, everyone. On behalf of MassCann, myself, and our panelists, thank you all